Hey,
Hi,
everybody.
hi, all of the one audience member who's live, but I do like reels of these, so we'll be able to share more later. But it's great that you happened to come by today because the question is about collaborating successfully with other creatives. And so since we have um, our co-creation, which is Heat, the Heat game, which is our spicy shadow play group game, um, then the question that I'm answering is how do I make sure all our talents, I'm interested in doing creative projects with other people. How do I make sure all our talents shine to the max without stepping on each other? And what I said was if you focus more on the the creation itself, if both people are looking at the creation itself and not so much worried about, well, how am I going to, show off what I can do and how am I going to show off what I can do, then the project or the creation itself will direct both or all the people. And what I said was, as long as the people who are involved have a similar or complementary idea of how creativity works in terms of being in agreement about letting the project lead or letting the energy of the creation lead. Um, and I feel like we have a lot of times with Heat, we've said, well, let's just let Heat decide
Yeah,
what
for
going
sure.
to be. And so what is your take on, collaborating successfully with other people?
So I love the idea of like putting the energy of the project first, putting the project first. And I think that's like a good thing to do in all aspects of life, like this third thing that emerges in relationships. So it's not about what I want, it's not about what you want, it's about like what are we creating together. So I think that's really wise advice and I love that.
Mm,
And the other thing that I wanted to add to it is um, this parenting coach that I work with sometimes her name is Abigail Wall.
mhm,
She was just talking about this the other day, saying that, and I know Morehouse I think has a similar strategy, but she has a business partnership, and all agreements have to be unanimous. But more importantly, she said what their like guiding principle is even if I disagree with you, can I love you and respect you so much that I will advocate for your position just as strongly as I advocate for mine? Like,
mhm,
can I love you so deeply and respect you so deeply that I put in the work to understand where you're coming from?
mm, mm. Yeah, that's strong medicine to say I'll advocate as much,
It
for
is.
your position as I and if both people do that, or if everybody's doing that, then yeah. And Liz is referring to Morehouse, not the college in Atlanta, but the group community. They do community living. And they do like sex education and education about sensuality. Um, and so, um, one thing I was going to say is what I've found too, is, especially in working with you, is that um, being in service to the energy of Heat, but in being in service to that, when we have felt strongly about approaching this a problem or an issue in different ways or seemingly oppositional ways, generally, if we are if we are both viewpoints are right, and then it ends up becoming like the solution ends up becoming like a melding of both of them, where both of them are required, and it couldn't work, with just one person's view. And I've seen that happen multiple times where it's like, there's no way that this can, because it's so different. It's such a, and I see what she's talking about, and yet I still feel this way. Um, and then a lot of times, if we just keep letting that dissonance be there, then it resolves, and then something will happen in a game, or something will happen where it's just like, oh, and it just naturally incorporates what we're both saying without it being really effortful. But it does require, to me, being willing to you know be in that space of dissonance where it's like, and it's not like we are in dissonance, but it's like we don't feel the same way, and just letting that be a part of going deeper with.
And I think that we also could be in a space of dissonance and let that itself would inform, like, if we can be with the fact that we're not agreeing,
Mhm.
or that even that we're feeling frustrated, that we haven't really gotten to that point. But we don't have like immense like financial pressures. We don't have like a massive team at this point or anything like that. And so like our decisions aren't, there's not like a time limit, which I think we have experienced that is like a strong stressor for me to have like a time limit on things. But I think that you're so right that just breathing with it, like letting the conflict be a part of the creative process, like what even greater thing can come because this conflict has arisen. Not
Yeah,
like this is a
yeah,
this is a problem, but like what even more beautiful thing can arise now that this is out in the open.
yeah. Or what even more beautiful thing is trying to arise through, and it can
Yeah.
only come through this conflict and everything. Yeah, yeah. And when you talk about the time limits, like at Morehouse, they call it the one no vote, where if one person says no, which is what you were saying about your parenting coach, and they don't have a time limit. They don't, and I think that's why. Like I remember my friend Oceana, who was there for a long time, said that there was something about a washing machine or something about some kind of where to put, and they could not agree, and it was over 2 years of them not not finalizing anything. It took that much time, and they let it take that much time to until everybody felt settled, and and I, that they were willing to sit for that long
Yeah.
and let it be, you know.
And
So I
there's
think there's something
something,
valuable to the, not putting a time limit. There is something valuable
yeah.
about
And as you were saying that, I just felt this like deep sense of peace, of like the slowness of the time scale. Like that's how, like, trees take a long time to build. Like when we used to build houses with our hands, they took a while to build. Like there was an integration as you were going the whole
it.
time,
Yeah, yeah, that's
instead
beautiful.
of immediately getting something and then not integrating it and
Yeah,
then having this kind of like, yeah,
yeah, and
lingering.
and I think that I have felt time pressure about, we got to figure out how do we work with people who haven't played Heat or da da da. We got to figure it out by the next game. I have felt that pressure. So even saying this now helps me think, well, maybe we can just trust the game and trust, go in not knowing, not having whatever thing resolved, which, you know, you know, 6 months ago, I just sort of shrank back aghast at the thought of that. And I think that I would be like, no, we absolutely have to know what the game plan is.
Well, and I think it's really beautiful because the more you can sit with my, like, I can't make a decision right now, the more you tell me I have to make a decision, the more I freeze
Yeah.
and I can't. But the more space there is, okay, you don't have to make a decision right now, then the more I can decide to make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the same thing, the
Yes.
more that I can decide to make a decision, the more that you don't need to have something decided
Mm-hmm.
immediately because you know the decision is going to come. And so
Yeah.
like there's a way that there's like a toggling back and
Yeah.
forth or like a wiggling like
Yeah.
towards you, towards me, towards you, towards me. And it that's like where the integration, where we're both growing.
Yeah. And it I think it does require trust, or it requires trust in something. I don't know trust in exactly what, if it's the process or if it's but it feels like some kind of trust is required, or a capacity for uncertainty is needed, and there does need to be. So, and I feel like we have very complementary, you know, I guess skill sets of capacity in different ways that, and I know I've said this to you many times. It's like I can't do this game without you because there are things that you see that I cannot see, and um, it's just like that is both um, frustrating and humbling and just wonderful and so good. But it is very vulnerable to feel, like uh, I'm I'm dependent or codependent or whatever. Like codependent in the positive sense of really, like co-regulating or whatever. But I am dependent on this other person, and
Interdependent, I think, is another word that's important.
okay, thank you. I'm interdependent on this other person's genius that I can't access because I'm not them, Um,
Yeah.
and the game, requires that, and I think certain projects do that. But I feel like, how would you answer the question? How do I make sure all our talents shine to the max without stepping on each other? How do you think that we have made sure our talents shine to the max without stepping on each other?
I think it comes back to that thing that Abigail was saying of like loving each other and respecting each other and assuming that there's a really good reason that the other person wants to do something their way,
Mm-hmm.
and letting there be space for that to resolve or not resolve right away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think yeah, love is what's coming to mind. Like loving the energy of the project and loving your co-collaborator, and and this kind of growth mindset or hope, maybe
Mm-hmm.
trusting that trusting in your ability to clean up a mess together, trusting that any conflict that arises can ultimately serve the project much more than the absence of conflict ever could. Like
Mm-hmm.
the most boring story in the world was once upon a time there was a girl and then she lived happily ever after. Like you need conflict in order for there to be the most compelling story. And so why not let that be a part of your work as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, yeah. And also where it's not, a sense of like, I don't know, I told you so, when,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah.
like, the point isn't to win. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
It's to serve
At,
the
at
project.
anybody's expense or anything. The point isn't for the collaborators to win. And nobody, and so not
I
at
do
the
have to
game's expense.
get I do have to get back to work. I'm sorry. But thank you so much for inviting me on. It was really great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for
Thanks
coming.
everybody. Yep.
Fun.
Bye.
Oh, I think I have to let. Okay, good. She left. So, so yeah, I think that answers the question. That was a lot of fun. That was unexpected. Um, yeah, I think there's just room. How do I make sure all our talents shine to the max without stepping on each other? Just knowing that there's room. I think there does have to be a mindset of there's room for all of us. There's room for all of us, and also there's room for all our human ego and imperfection and um, our foibles, as I like to call them. Just our we're learning, we're growing, we're trying, and just making room for that and trusting that there is room for us to, you know, learn and grow and make mistakes and all of that. So, yeah. All right. Thanks so much. And